Full card predictions for Noche UFC. As always, you can call me Kunith. Let's make some money this week. It's come to my attention that Oscar hasn't been getting the videos out for the past couple of events, and it just begs the question, what are you doing? Do you think your daily allowance of one sleeve of Ritz crackers just grows on trees? Effective immediately, I will take over video production so we can get this out to you. Diego Lopes, Jean Silva, top of the card. Let's get it. Banger of a fight for these featherweights. You have Diego Lopes coming off a loss to the champion after stringing together 5 straight, while Jean Silva on the other side hasn't lost in a very long time. 13 fight winning streak, 12 of those being finishes. The only one he didn't finish was Kevin Vallejos, who's different gravy. But both these guys are finishers. I don't expect this fight to go the whole 25 minutes. I think one of them loses inside the distance. As you have Diego Lopes coming in as a pretty big underdog, which isn't surprising when you consider a few things. One, the current form that we're getting out of Silva. The guy does look unstoppable. We can't argue that. At 145 pounds, it looks like he's hitting harder than everybody. Showed off the grappling chops against Bryce Mitchell, defending takedowns, ultimately submitting Mitchell. Second reason is Lopes didn't look great against Volkanovski. Granted, it's Alexander Volkanovski. Guys tend to not look great against him because of how great he is. But for a guy in Lopes who is getting a title shot, like this is what you've been fighting your entire life for, he goes out there, he's throwing a lot, but he's missing on so much, like very, very low accuracy. Lost 4 rounds to 1, really had one big moment in that fight, and apart from that, just didn't really do anything. He looked like he was a step behind the entire fight. And the third reason that I think would justify the price is the fight that Dan Ige had with him. Dan Ige gave this guy hell on short notice, and by short notice I mean a couple of hours. Gives him trouble, and if memory serves correctly, takes the 3rd round off of him. So why wouldn't Jean Silva win this week? The only way I think Silva loses is if he slows down in this one, because he's never been 5 rounds. He's given up some size. Diego Lopes is super tough, so he should be able to deal with some of that power. But to me, that's the only way Silva loses this fight. And it kind of feels like the discourse that was in the lead up to the Dricus du Plessis Khamzat Chimaev fight. Oh, well, Khamzat's got to slow down. Of course he's going to slow down. After round 3, he's going to be gassed. He'll have nothing left. We just can't bank on that anymore. As MMA fans, as bettors on the sport, we have to evolve a little bit. We can't just assume that these guys have cardio issues if we haven't really seen it. And there are a few different ideas when it comes to MMA and betting on the sport that we've all just kind of accepted. One of them being, oh, if a guy is explosive and has hot starts and finishes a lot of fights, he's going to get tired later, even if we haven't seen it. We kind of assume it, and we just shouldn't do that anymore. There are a few things like that that we're actually going to cover throughout this video, because there are other opportunities that I'm identifying as well, and I could end up being wrong, but I don't think that we're going to see Jean Silva slow down all that much, and I think he's going to close him out inside the first 3 or 4 rounds anyway. But I think Jean Silva actually has fun with Diego Lopes here. Like, I think he goes out there, just styles on him the way that he has with these other guys, makes it light, keeps it fun, and just lands his big shots whenever he wants. Diego Lopes is very hittable, and I don't know if Lopes has a ton of power like we might have previously thought. Like, this is 3 fights in a row now where he's gone the distance. He's not really putting a stamp on these guys. Like, you saw him, he landed on Dan Ige in spots. He hurt Brian Ortega. He dropped Volkanovski, but I don't think he's really gotten one-shot knockout power like somebody like Silva does. I look at Jean Silva and see somebody who should be fighting for the belt, probably winning the belt and holding on to it for a while. And I think that we've seen Diego Lopes now come up short when he gets that big boost in competition. He lost to Joe Anderson Brito a few years ago, Movsar Evloev in his debut, then Volkanovski. Those guys are elite. If you are below that elite level, Diego Lopes is going to give you hell. And if you're not, and he's going to lose. I think that Jean Silva is elite. I think that he ends up winning this fight by knockout. Next, we have a fight between Rob Font and David Martinez. Old Rob was ready to put a whoop-in on Raul Rosas Jr. Raul, of course, went running for the hills. Not the first time we've seen it, by the way. So David Martinez, who was fighting Quang Lee, he ends up co-maining instead, stepping in for Raul Rosas Jr., and he's fighting Rob Font. Nice opportunity for him. Big step up in competition. This is normally a situation where we as fans accept that the outcome of these fights should be impacted by the level of competition. This is another example. Fighter A's competed against this caliber of fighter, while Fighter B's competed against this caliber of fighter, so that gives Fighter A the edge. And I guess experience is important, yes. Like, I've talked about it countless times on the channel. This guy's competed against better fighters. Being better fighters, he should beat this guy. But maybe we've put too much stock into it. And I know that Rob Font has fought everybody. And to me, that's largely why he's going to come into this fight favored, or at least he is at the time of recording this. But Rob Font's name recognition and his resume is what makes him a favorite, I think, more than tactically what you see on tape, because I think Martinez is better. I think he's younger, Well, I don't think he's younger. I know he's young. He's not Brazilian, so I'm assuming he's telling the truth on the birth certificate. He has more power in his hands than Rob Font. He's taken way less damage than Rob Font has. Like, we talk about, oh, this guy's fought high levels of competition, but we've seen guys hurt Rob Font bad. We saw Marlon Vera drop him several times. Not really seeing that in David Martinez fights. So I think that the mileage is catching up to Rob Font at 38 years old. We picked him the last time out. We picked him the time before that. I think. I know we definitely picked him to beat Jan Matsumoto, and, you know, he did that. Plus, I think it plays into David Martinez's hands that he takes this fight on short notice, because you have Rob Font, who was fully prepared to fight Raul Rosas Jr. The thing about Rob Font, always good preparation, always going to come into this with a good game plan. You know, he was working tirelessly to try to defend takedowns, get back up to his feet, anti-wrestling against the fence, getting ready for a grappler in Raul Rosas Jr. Now, with the opponent change, you're not really getting a grappler. You're getting a boxing-heavy approach from an aggressive guy who's going to be on the gas for most of the fight, is going to kind of fight you with that Mexican style. I'm coming downhill, high guard, I'm going to let my hands go. It's not like Rob Font hasn't seen that before, but I do think that the late swap in opponent is better for Martinez than it is for Font, because for Martinez, he was going to deal with a striker anyway. And not for nothing, I expect Martinez to look a lot cleaner. I think he wins the volume game here, even though Rob Font can put a lot out there. I think that Martinez is going to make him pay when he's putting too much out there, and then make him try to counter strike. So I think Martinez ends up winning on the numbers, and I think he produces bigger moments here as well. And with all that grappling prep and what I assume is going to be a slight striking edge for Martinez, I expect Rob Font to be shooting for takedowns here, but Martinez has good hips, strong balance, just a naturally athletic guy. I think he's going to be able to keep the feet here where he's having the most success. So I love the dog spot here, and I'm a Rob Font kind of guy, but I do think that Martinez has the tools to get it done. He has to watch out for the fake glove touch round one though, but give me David Martinez to win this fight by decision. And real quick, if you haven't already, like the video, subscribe to the channel, comment something for the algorithm. You know how the algorithm works. Next, we got Jared Gordon fighting Rafa Garcia. If these two were paint palettes at Home Depot, they would be like the same color, or at least in the same row. Because to me, these guys are the same. And I know it's not a one-to-one comparison, but stocky guys who like to get their takedowns, good chin on both sides. And let me know in the comments if you're a Home Depot kind of guy or a Lowe's kind of guy. Personally, I like Home Depot. I see a Home Depot bucket right beyond the camera. But while these guys share a lot of traits, I think that Gordon might just be a little bit better everywhere. I think the boxing is a little bit tighter. I think his top control is a little bit better. We see Garcia racking up high takedown numbers in these fights, but he doesn't have elite control, not by any stretch. What worries me about Gordon, though, is that even if he's better, even if he's having more success, sometimes the judges don't see it that way. Against Paddy Pimblett, should have won that fight. Judges don't see it that way. Against Nasrat Haqparast, I picked Nasrat. I thought Nasrat Haqparast did enough. I go online after the fight, people are screaming robbery. So if this fight ends up being close, I can see the judges giving it to the other guy, because maybe it's the way that Jared Gordon takes damage or wears damage, or the body language, or how he walks onto shots. Rafa Garcia does do a lot of the same thing though. He can get busted up, he can walk onto shots, but maybe he's just doing a little bit more. Maybe he's the one that's moving forward a bit more. Maybe he gets some takedowns here. It's not impossible to take Gordon down. It's not impossible for Garcia to be taken down. Maybe Gordon decides to wrestle. It's tough one way or another, but here's where I'm at with it. I think the line's a little bit wide. I think this fight could easily be a pick'em, right? I think that these guys do a lot of the same things well, and we've seen Jared Gordon on the wrong side of some decisions. Certain fighters just don't win on the cards as much as they probably should, or as much as the fans think that they should. And I think that Rafa Garcia keeps it close, is going to get the benefit of the doubt, especially with the theme of the night, the theme of the fight, where the fight is taking place. I could see a lot of things just going in Rafa Garcia's direction. I think he can get some timely takedowns at the end of these rounds. I think that Rafa Garcia just keeps it close, puts the judges in a weird spot, and the judges end up just giving it to the guy who might be the one moving forward a bit more. So I'll take another dog here. I'm not loving Jared Gordon at his price. If he goes out there and knocks him out like he did to Thiago Moises, I would be very surprised. I thought that was kind of an outlierish performance, but we also saw Rafa Garcia get knocked out and get completely dominated on the mat by Grant Dawson. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that Jared Gordon comes out here and gets it done, but I think it goes the distance, and I think it's going to be hard to judge one way or the other. So give me the dog. Taking Rafa Garcia by decision. Next, we have a fight between Kelvin Gastelum fighting Dustin Stoltzfus. If you guys have watched the channel for a while, you know I'm all over Dustin Stoltzfus. I think that he's much better than his record would suggest. The problem is, You can't just keep losing. You can't. And I've watched the man lose time and time again. And we even picked against him last time out against Nursultan Ruzaboyev because he loses fights more than his opponents win. He just has bad fight IQ. He's going to make a mistake inevitably. And Gastelum's going to be able to do whatever he wants. Stoltzfus is not going to be able to hurt him with the hands at all. He's not going to be able to take Kelvin Gastelum down. If Gastelum wants to get Stoltzfus on the mat, he's going to be able to do it with ease. This is one of the easier fights that Kelvin Gastelum has been given in a long time. He's been somebody who's gotten some pretty tough matchmaking over the years because of his status and his hype coming into the UFC and his ability, right? Like Kelvin Gastelum can really put your lights out if you're not careful. I think you could do the same thing to Stoltzfus here. If you're looking for a fun betting angle, I think taking Kelvin Gastelum by knockout is very, very live. Stoltzfus tends to get hit a lot. He tends to walk in with his hand. Stoltzfus tends to get hit a lot. He fights at a high pace. He's not a very measured guy by any means. And I could see Kelvin Gastelum just kind of hands low, kind of lulling him to sleep, and then bow, catching him with a right hand. Correction. Left hand out of that southpaw stance, which is another thing at play here. You got a guy in Dustin Stoltzfus who already has fight IQ issues, and now having to fight somebody in southpaw stance, it just doesn't make things any easier for him. Southpaws could be tricky, and Kelvin Gastelum has been fighting out of that stance since he was a baby. So I'll take KG to get it done here. I think he ends up sleeping my boy Stoltzfus, unfortunately, but you know, you gotta do what you gotta do. You gotta go get your money. So give me Kelvin Gastelum to win by knockout. And that's probably going to be on the official betting article of the week. You can find that on kunithmma.com, as well as the parlays in the community tab, DFS strategy guide, tools, data, all that good stuff, linked in the description and in a pinned comment. Let's keep going. Next, we have Alexander Hernandez fighting Diego Ferreira. Gotta put some respect on Alex Hernandez's name after what he did to Chase Hooper, and we should have saw that coming from a mile away. Me, you, everybody. Because at the end of the day, we're looking at an athletic contest here. Of course, it's a fight. Some guys are better fighters than they are athletes. Alex Hernandez, one of the best athletes in the division. He might not be one of the best fighters in the division. Hell, Diego Ferreira might be a better fighter than Alex Hernandez. Chase Hooper might be more technical than Alex Hernandez. Fight gets on the mat, he would give Hernandez hell, but the fight never got there because Hernandez is so damn athletic. We got to put some respect on his name. They're giving him guys like Chase Hooper, which again, I was wrong. We all were. But in hindsight, we should have saw that coming. Chase Hooper is lanky, slow, hittable. Diego Ferreira is 40 years old, past it, hittable. What's to stop Alex Hernandez from just using that footwork, bouncing around in front of him, and then cracking him with a big right hand and then dropping him and finishing him? Because once guys get hurt in front of Hernandez, they really don't last that long typically. And you can go on the other side, make the argument, well, if Diego Ferreira gets the fight to the mat, maybe drags him into deep water, he should have some success. But it just sounds like the same things that we were saying about Hernandez in his last fight, and maybe that's just not Alex Hernandez anymore. Maybe this is a guy who's kind of put all the pieces together. Like, I wrote him off. I think a decent amount of people did, but I know I wrote him off heavy. Like, Alex Hernandez not that guy anymore. Doesn't hit as hard as we thought he did, and maybe he's just not that good. He flipped the script last time out, and then it's not like he caught Chase Hooper lacking. Like, he caught him, he set him up, he looked good. I think you keep serving him up these kinds of guys who he's just way faster than, way twitchier than, he's going to light them up. So I think that Alex Hernandez wins this fight by knockout. Next, we have a fight between Santiago Luna. He's making his UFC debut here against Quang Lee, who was supposed to fight David Martinez. Now he fights Santiago Luna. He was going to get cooked, and now is he going to get cooked by this guy who hasn't fought the highest level of competition, guy who's making his debut jitter, stuff like that. Here's the third thing that we as MMA fans and bettors of the sport have tended to accept that I want to kind of challenge a little bit. UFC debut jitters, real thing, absolutely a real thing. You see guys time and time again come into the UFC, underperform in their first fight, and then look better after the fact. But we also see the opposite. We don't see it as much, but we do see the opposite, where guys come in and they look pretty damn good. Even in losses, sometimes these guys just show up, they look way better than expected, and they put together these decent performances, and then after that, they look terrible. Sometimes when you see these guys make their UFC debut and they're having a lot of success, again, even in losses, they're having a lot of success, you notice it tends to be with younger dudes. Santiago Luna's 21 years old, 6-0. He's a baby, just getting started. Remember when you were 21? Come on. You were a baby, you knew nothing. You're dumb, right? At 21 years old, you could do anything because you still have so much time left. You can make any mistake, it doesn't matter. Now, if you're 32, and you've been training really hard, and you know the shelf life for fighters is not very long, right? So you know you're maybe 3 4-5 years from calling it quits. And that's if you are elite and you've kept yourself in really good shape and you're extremely high level. If you are making your UFC debut in your 30s, you probably don't have very much money. This is it, right? You've trained so hard to get to this point. So if you go in there and you lose a couple of times, you're done. You're not going to get another call back from the UFC 4 years later after you've tried to improve, because at that point you're gonna be 35, 36, 37 years old with a bad record already in the promotion. You're 21 years old and 6-0. Just go out there and try to knock this guy out. What's the worst that happens? You lose? What's the worst that happens? You get one loss on your record? That doesn't matter in MMA. You're already gonna have more opportunities in the promotion, and let's say you don't have things go your way. Let's say you put on some bad performances. Let's say the UFC just like, nah, I'm good on you. Then they send you away, and then what happens? You go out, you get better, you come back, and you're Yusuf Zalal. Look at that. Quang is like a lot of these, I'll call them Eastern fighters. Big ass head, he's super hittable, doesn't move his head all that much, and is kind of a generalist. Like, he's not that great at any one thing. I fully expect him to give up speed, durability, punching power, ferocity, just pace, all of that. I expect him to give up all of that against Santiago Luna here, who can win however he wants. If the fight's on the feet, I think that he's going to touch Lee up. If he wants to take him down, I think he could take him down no problem. We've seen Quang Lee taken down in the UFC already. This is a setup spot, and I think the line should be way bigger. I don't care that he's a young guy. I don't care that he's making his debut. I don't care that he doesn't have that much experience. I don't think Quang Lee is somebody who's going to win a ton of fights at the UFC level, and I don't think Santiago Luna's taken that call unless he thinks he can beat this guy, and they gave him maybe the softest matchup on the card. So give me Santiago Luna. I think he goes out there, makes good on his UFC debut, captures a whole lot of new fans, a whole lot of new attention. Good time for the 21-year-old. Give me Santiago Luna. Not worried about those UFC jitters. He's going to win this week. One of the unluckiest men in the UFC is Dusko Todorovic. Skilled. His chin doesn't know how good he is at fighting. If his chin knew, maybe his chin would try a little bit more, but his chin doesn't know how good he is at fighting. His body doesn't know that he's a professional athlete, and it tends to fail on him, even if it's not his chin, even if it's another part of his body. But he is a professional athlete, and he is better than Jose Medina. Jose Medina is not a UFC fighter at all. He is a warm body that's been put in there so that guys can look good, and I think that Dusko is going to run through him this week. Those odds are wrong. Everything that I'm seeing on the screen right now is wrong. Okay, odds flipped back to where they're supposed to be. Let me tell you, if Dusko was plus 250 here, we're having conversations about generational wealth. No, Dusko should absolutely get it done this week, and Jose Medina, very tough. Of course, he gets knocked out by a Teba Gautier, but that's going to happen when dense African bone bounces off your bean top. So I'm not going to say that Dusko's going to go out there and knock him out, because Jose Medina is cast iron, right? The guy will keep fighting you until he's dead, but he can be submitted. And I think that Dusko takes his back, wins by rear naked choke. You get a better price on Dusko this week by taking him by submission. So give me Todorovic to win this fight by submission. Next we have Claudio Puelles, however you pronounce it. He's fighting Joaquim Silva this week. I like the old Brazilian here, I'll tell you. Because Claudio Puelles, I just don't think he's that great, right? I think that he's got slick technique on the mat when he's going for those knee bars. We saw him knee bar Clay Guida. We've seen him win by knee bar more than once in the UFC. He's great at it. Best knee bar artist in MMA right now, maybe. You're going to do that to Neto BJJ? You're going to do that to Neto BJJ? I don't think so. I think you're going to be forced to throw hands. I think if you're going to try to get takedowns here, you're going to have to defend some guillotines, and it's a pretty damn good guillotine. Just ask Drakkar Klose, who's willing to risk his life over that guillotine. He's ready to die for it. The style that Puelles is fighting with recently, it's just not a winning style. You see the fight against Faraz, take him down a bunch, try to look for submission, try to set something up, hold him down, land nothing of consequence. You can't do that and win. Fight against Dan Hooker, he just completely quit. And Joaquim Silva, he's gotten thrown in the fire. Like, he's fought good fighters. You saw him fight Drakkar Klose and nearly finish him more than once. You saw him fight Arman Sarukian, and you see that every time Arman Sarukian's in the news, you see the left hook that Joaquim Silva landed on him and kind of wobbled him with. This guy's just game, and he's going to make it gritty. He's going to make it dirty. I think Claudio Puelles thrives when he's able to get to his spot, or when he keeps it clean and keeps it pretty, like against Faraz, who kind of does the same thing, keeps it clean, keeps it pretty at times. But I think he's going to be forced to really dig deep here against somebody like Silva, and I would just prefer the guy that I've seen have success against better fighters as a result, which I know It's not the same thing I was saying before, where this guy fought this level of competition, this guy fought this level. But I just like the stuff that I've seen, the body language, the grittiness, the willingness to slug it out, looking for those finishing techniques even when things aren't going your way from Silva, more than Puelles, who's just, I don't know what you're doing anymore. There was a time, like, after that Clay Guida knee bar, I was like, Claudio, Puelles is the truth. And after a couple of performances after that, not interested. I like the odds here on Silva. I think that that's a great betting opportunity. If you wait, though, closer to fight time, I think that he'll end up being the underdog there. But give me Joaquim Silva to win this fight. I think he could win inside the distance. Tatiana Suarez. Now, I don't know if I have the bout order right, but if you go from fighting in the co-main spot for the belt to fighting on an undercard on a non-pay-per-view, that's tough. That's bad biscuits. But here we are, and she's going to get back on track. Auntie Amanda is not going to be able to keep her from taking her down, submitting her with ease. We saw Vina Jandiroba run through Auntie Amanda, no problem. We saw people going out there and putting tons of money on Yasmin Lucindo, which I thought was crazy. But people were like, yeah, Yasmin Lucindo's going to beat her. I don't think that she was going to do that, but there was the idea that she was going to take Lemos down, dominate her on the mat. I don't think that Yasmin Lucindo had the tools at the time to do that. Tati Suarez absolutely does. Easy one for Tatiana Suarez. She wins by submission. Now, this fight here should be setting off alarms in your head. Luis Gurule fighting Jesus Aguilar. You look at those numbers, you're like, Jesus Aguilar all day. A Mexican fighter at Noche Ufc plus 180 against the guy who got knocked out by Ode Osborne. I understand if you think that way, but this is a great buy low spot for Luis Gurule because he's just a better fighter than Jesus Aguilar. I think a lot of people kind of sleep on Ode Osborne because Ode Osborne's inconsistent. Sometimes he looks great, sometimes he looks like shit. We saw him against Steve Erceg nearly sleep Steve Erceg at one point. We're talking about a guy who has a win over Charles Johnson, right? Like his Ode Osborne, he can beat Charles Johnson, but he can't beat Brian Kelleher. That's the dichotomy of man. That is Ode Osborne. But Luis Gurule, UFC debut against a long, rangy guy in Ode. Now he's fighting Jesus Aguilar, who's got Molly McCann's reach. I think Gurule looks good here. I think on the feet, he's going to have more success. If he wants to take Aguilar down, he could take him down whenever. He just has to worry about that guillotine technique because Aguilar does have a hell of a guillotine choke, but I don't expect Gurule to get caught with that. Guillotine shouldn't work, right? I know that people go for them all the time. Sometimes we see them, but largely they shouldn't work. And I don't think that Luis Gurule is going to get caught with that, especially with that bad taste he needs to wash out of his mouth. If Jesus Aguilar had more power on the feet, more consequential striking, then I think he would be a better underdog. I think people are going to be all over him at his price and the current form of Luis Gurule, but I think that the Shannon Ross knockout, he knocked out Shannon Ross, joined the club. I think people are sleeping on Gurule because Gurule was supposed to come and blow the doors off Ode Osborne. Things didn't go his way. He gets caught, but I expect him to bounce back and look like the way we thought he would look coming into the UFC in his sophomore performance here. So give me Luis Gurule to make good on his second fight in the UFC, actually become a UFC fighter. That's the rule, right? You have to win in the promotion. He becomes a UFC fighter this week. Give me Gurule by decision. Next, we have Zach Reese fighting a bathroom stall door. Cedricus Dumas, he's in a tough spot because his job is to fight and he's not very good at fighting. That's the problem. And it's tricky when you run into that. This is an easy one for Zach Reese. Like I kind of thought that Cedricus Dumas had a chance if he was fighting Jackson McVeigh, but I think that Zach Reese a little bit more polished, a little bit more experienced. I think he's going to come out here and give Cedricus Dumas hell. We saw Dumas just cower, crumble, just shell up against Michal Leksichuk, folded under the slightest bit of pressure. It wasn't even a good stoppage, but it was because he wasn't doing anything. Just not very scrappy. I don't think that the guy's as good of a striker as he was touted to be coming into the UFC. I think that his grappling is pedestrian at best, while Zach Reese does have a competent ground game. I think that Cedricus Dumas just kind of fell into this largely because of his appearance and is probably not long for the promotion after he loses this week. So give me Zach Reese to win this fight by knockout. Another easy one. You see those odds there? A lot of value there, right? You got Alessandro Costa now. Granted, Aiden Correa, he's fighting short notice, stepping in because Costa was supposed to be fighting somebody else. Alessandro Costa, though, pretty solid. Obviously going to win. It's just how is he going to win, right? You want to get a better price on him, take him by knockout. I think that would be the move. I love this spot. You have Alice Pereira. She's coming out here fighting Montserrat Rendon. Alice Pereira, 19. Montserrat Rendon, 36 years old, and only 2 fights as far as experience goes separating the two. Alice Pereira is a big girl. She's going to come out here. She's going to put it on her. I didn't even need to really go back and see too much. You look at the age, you look at the opponent. Montserrat Rendon is not somebody who's getting put in there to win. I'll tell you that right now. Alice Pereira is going to go in there and put it on her, make good on her UFC debut, and be all the hotness for a couple of months until she gets a matchup where she ends up fighting somebody who's competent. Maybe they'll give her like a couple of Montserrat Rendon types on the way up, but I think that Alice Pereira goes out there and wins. And lastly, we have the Ultimate Fighter finale, and I'll tell you, like I told you the last time, I did not watch Ultimate Fighter because why would I? Like, I could watch literally anything else, right? So why would I do that? These guys will make it, and then we'll see. You will get catfished like we did with the Kazakh guy the last time the Ultimate Fighter finale fought. From what I've gathered in the time between when this fight was first supposed to happen to now, is that Danchenko is supposed to come out here and just knock this guy out, a guy who doesn't get knocked out, a guy who's fighting out of Nova União, famously, obviously, like Renan Barão, Jose Aldo, but even more recently, you got guys like Hernandez fighting out of there. I know that Danchenko's fighting out of Tiger Muay Thai. That's cool. UFC fighters coming out of there, but I think the gym that Sanzonato's in is way more storied. I don't know if there's a rich history for Ukrainian MMA fighters in the UFC. I think that Sanzonato is cut from a certain cloth that we've donned many times. And at these odds, why not take the dog? Especially for a guy who has fought at welterweight for longer, bigger frame, slightly bigger body, against a guy in Danchenko who's fought at 155 pounds. I think that Sanzonato, 27 years old, maybe has been around the game for a little bit longer. In Brazil, these guys are fighting when they're first born. Like in America, you get held upside down, doctor slaps your butt. In Brazil, the doctor goes for a heel hook and you gotta not tap or else they throw you out. That's a joke. That might have been too much. That might have been too much, Oscar. But I'll take the Brazilian dog here to start the night. I just don't want to bank on him coming out of that gym with that kind of history to get knocked out when that doesn't really happen to him. So I think that Sanzonato's good value at 2-1. And that'll do it for me. If you haven't already, like the video, subscribe, comment something for the algorithm. I'll see you later in the week for final picks. Let's go.